We interrupt your regularly scheduled brainwashing with a dose of reality from CNS Dispatch. CNS. Citizens, not servants.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever happens to be while you're watching. So coming at you with another dispatch from CNS News Dispatch, where of course CNS stands for Citizens Not Servants. So I wanted to kind of recap a couple things that have recently happened and kind of tie it into what's been happening currently with Ukraine. So I don't think people truly understand the scope of what is currently happening and what has been happening, not just in the U.S., but this video is more, mainly concentrating on what's going on inside the U.S. So as a recap, the biggest events that have hit the globe over the last couple of decades, our government, in collusion with the media and with big tech, have been lying to us. And yet still to this day, millions upon millions of people believe that the media is truthful and unbiased. Our government has our best interest, us being the United States citizens, in mind when they do things in government, whether it's creating bills or whatever, what have you, and that big tech is not censoring people. So this goes back to starts more or less. I'm going to start with the Obama era, when he basically let a law sunset or expire or whatever that prevented the media from participating in and pushing propaganda. So prior to this act, the media was supposed to, and they did a much better job than what they're doing today, not supposed to push propaganda. They're supposed to push facts, data, truth. There was always opinion pieces and op-eds and editorials that they all participated in, which was fine, but they were in the opinion section of the newspaper. They were in the opinion, news shows or whatever, right? Well, after Obama got rid of that law or let it expire, the media went full Pravda. If you don't know who Pravda is the what's the term used to describe the media wing of the communist Russian government. It's all pro-Russia government. It's all pro-Russia. It's all pro everything and anti-capitalism. Pro for everything that is anti-capitalism. So after Obama allowed that law to expire or sunset, our media has gone full Pravda. So just to recap a few things, major events. I'm not going to hit the millions of little things they've lied about, but let's look at a couple of the big ones. Back in 2016 and 2017, the media, in collusion, in lockstep with our government, started to lie that Trump was a Russian stooge, that he colluded with Russia to overthrow the free and fair election in 2016, which obviously he won and became president of January 2017. The lies that were pushed was that he colluded, that he had a computer that was communicating with Russia, all these other lies, that he had a prostitute pee on him, the fake dossier. They pushed this narrative for 4 years. As a matter of fact, they're still pushing it because they're still trying to bring charges. They impeached, the House impeached Trump over this whole thing. Every bit of that storyline that were subjected to for 4 years was proven to be an outright lie. The government investigated, the Mueller report for 2 years. The FBI was involved. The CIA was involved. All the media outlets, with the exception of Fox for the most part, but they also took part in some of it, were pushing a narrative that Trump was a Russian stooge, Trump was a Russian spy, or paid off, he was a puppet of Putin, right? So after 4 years of investigations and hearings and the Mueller report, not one of the accusations labeled against or put against Trump with regards to Russia was true. Every accusation put forth in the Steele dossier, every accusation put forth by the media, every accusation put forth by Congress, our government at the time, has proven to be a lie. As a matter of fact, John Durham is still investigating, and two of his findings have come out so far. And I'm going to keep it in mind, his findings are legal court documents. The FBI lawyer, Klein Smith, if you're not aware of who he was, who messed with evidence, added a word into an email. That email was used to garner a FISA warrant to allow the government to spy on Carter Page. That was proven to be false. That was proven to be, he tampered with evidence. He was prosecuted. He was found guilty of it. Now the sentencing went really light. He got his law license back. He's back to practicing law. I'm not sure if he's still an employee of the FBI or not yet. But the whole point of all that is the media, big tech, and our government were a trifecta, the triad of misinformation, all saying that Trump was a Putin puppet, came out to be a lie. And now evidence is coming out that Hillary, the DNC, and a few other people were involved with manipulating, manufacturing the whole Steele dossier. They were paid. The Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC is involved with this. Paid a company, look into Ops Trust, by the way, to spy on then candidate Donald Trump back in 2016, early 2017, and continued to spy on him while he was the sitting president of the United States, gathering information as to what websites, blah, 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 his campaign was going to when he was, president-elect, and then what White House was looking at after he became president. And there are still millions upon millions of people that think Trump is a Putin president or a Putin puppet. Even though Russia didn't do anything via Ukraine while he was president, keeping in mind Russia invaded Crimea when Obama was president. They didn't do anything overtly. I'm sure there was a lot of covert stuff going on. I'm not really going to get into that. But overtly, he attacked and invaded Crimea, took that Crimea away from Ukraine, which it was part of Ukraine in 2014, and we didn't do shit about it other than participate in the revolution that took place in 2014. We did nothing while Trump was president with regards to Ukraine overtly. A year after Biden becomes president, he overtly goes back after Ukraine. But somehow Trump is Putin's puppet, and still there are millions of people that believe it. The next big one, this is a global thing, so I'm talking mainly what happened here in the United States. But when it comes to COVID, our government, in collusion with the media, our government, including the NIH, the NIADA, the CDC, and the FDA, I'm including all those agencies together, in addition to our government, meaning our representatives, senators, and president and his administration, and the big tech lied about COVID. Keep in mind, when COVID first broke out, nobody really knew what was going on. Okay, it happens. You have to investigate and find out what's going on. Okay, cool, fine. So during keep in mind, our first case was in the United States was actually in December of 2019. I believe it was a person of Asian descent out in Washington, the state of Washington. January, it all started kicking off globally, and then it started kicking off here in the United States. Well, in early 2020, February, March, April, May timeframe, that's when we really started getting the peak of the pandemic. So there were doctors, there were scientists who came out saying, hey, hold on a second. Stop for a second. The initial information coming from our government was this was a zoological virus, meaning it was a virus found in nature in bats that jumped from a bat to a lizard creature. I can't remember the name of it, and then transferred over to humans or made the leap, right? But back in early April, March timeframe, there was a bunch of doctors and scientists came out and said, hold on, time out. We're looking at this virus and we see spliced DNA from HIV virus onto this SARS-CoV virus, which then became SARS-CoV-2, now known as COVID-19. So they got ridiculed. They were taken off YouTube. The government, along with the CDC, said, no, that's all a lie. That's not true. A bunch of scientists also came out and said, hey, there's no way this made a jump. This had to have come from the Wuhan lab. They were ridiculed. People were taken off YouTube, not just having the individual video taken out, but completely deplatformed, demonetized, etc. This was globally, but specifically here in the United States, where people were speaking out against the current mainstream narrative of this being zoological and from the wet market in Wuhan to being, no, this is a man-made manipulated virus that had to have come from the Wuhan lab. So people who were in support of that theory were ridiculed, deplatformed. Doctors lost their jobs. Scientists lost their jobs, all because they backed that narrative. Well, fast forward a little bit. Then we start doing the lockdowns. Then we start doing the mask mandates. Fast forward to the vaccines. Our government is telling us we must lock down for the 2 weeks to slow the curve. Keeping in mind, the lockdowns were only to prevent a rush on hospitals. The lockdowns were not meant to stop the spread. That was what was pushed out by our mainstream media and government. We need to lock down to prevent people from rushing to the hospital, to slow the curve, not to overwhelm our medical facilities. Well, obviously that 2 weeks turned into 2 years in a lot of places like California, some northeastern states, Michigan, Illinois, New York. They've kept their citizenry locked down. And then keeping in mind, remember, the people in our states like Florida and Texas that didn't go in, and South Dakota, that didn't go into any lockdowns, that didn't make any of those mandates, were ridiculed. DeSantis and Abbott were trying to kill people. What about grandma? They were ridiculed and ostracized and demeaned by our government and the media because Florida and Texas didn't go into lockdowns. You guys remember all this, right? So studies started coming out about the lockdown saying, no, they're not doing any good. Studies started coming about the masks. I've done multiple videos about masks where they don't work to stop the spread. Masks, depending upon if you're not wearing an N95 type respirator, okay? So an N95 is not a mask. It is a respirator. You have to get fit tested for, blah, blah, blah. So I'm taking the N95 off the table. We're talking about the surgical mask, the medical mask, cloth mask, bandanas, shit that most everybody wore. They do nothing to stop the spread. They do nothing at all to stop the spread. Multiple surveys have come out, but if you look into the actual, just the physics and the physical makeup of the masks, the holes in the mask are too big to stop the virus because the virus is smaller than the holes and this fits right through. As far regards to stopping spittle, if any of you have ever gotten a COVID test where they swab your mouth instead of your nose, let me know. All COVID tests swab your nose. They don't swab your mouth because the acidity of the saliva in your mouth will not allow for a virus to survive in your mouth. Bacteria, yes. Viruses, no. So anyway, the whole spittle argument is a red herring. It doesn't make any fucking sense because that's not how COVID is spread. COVID is aerosolized via your lungs through your nasal passages and expelled that way. So anyway, I digress. We were told that the masks all work. We were told that they'll help stop the spread. They'll protect you. And if you didn't wear your mask, oh, you're trying to kill grandma and grandpa, right? You guys all remember this. Then they made it mandatory in schools and so on. And then the vaccines started rolling out. Well, those of us that looked into this and researched were calling, ringing alarm bells saying, hey, hold on, these haven't passed an safety test. Where are the results from the safety test? Usually vaccines take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to go through the whole process before the FDA will approve them. The vaccines went through, 8 months of safety testing. And this was during the last year of the Trump administration. So Trump is not innocent of this. He was part of this. Now, whether he was fed lies and such by the likes of Fauci, the CDC, the NIH, NIDA, FDA, that's yet to be seen. But under his administration, these vaccines were expedited. All the typical safety measures that are put in for vaccines were all removed. And here we go with these vaccines. No long-term effect studies. This is a brand new vaccine. So those of you that are trying to compare the COVID vaccines with all the other vaccines, that we get, like smallpox and all the other stuff, it's an apples to orange argument. This is a brand new technology. This is mRNA technology that has never been used in the history of the world in a situation like this. Everything about mRNA was all theory, lab tested, never tried on human beings, etc. Lo and behold, we're now testing it on humans. So the current COVID vaccines are not comparable to our current our long known vaccines like polio and smallpox, because it's completely different technology. But anyway, so now it's pushed on us. Those of us that were concerned, we're going, hold on a second. What's in these vaccines? What are you putting into our bodies? What are the long-term effects? What's the results of the safety trials? Well, all that was hid from us, and it's still hidden to this day. Some of the stuff has come out slowly and surely, like a drip from a faucet. But keep in mind, remember that the powers that be, made the results from the safety studies and such with the Pfizer, Moderna vaccines. They classified them for 75 years. You guys remember this, right? If you don't, you're not awake. So anyway, so we got the vaccines coming. Then we start getting the mandates. Then we start getting, if you don't wear a mask, you can't go into certain venues such as concerts, restaurants, theaters, and that kind of stuff. Gyms were shut down. Small businesses were shut down. We're all told to stay home. Employees were made to stay home, whereas a lot of people couldn't stay home because if you are an employee of a manufacturing place, you can't put nuts and bolts together from your fucking house. You have to go on site and do it. Then we had the whole essential, non-essential worker debate that we had to deal with, right? So anyway, so we're told all this stuff, right? Well, now mask mandates are being repealed. Results from the safety test of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are coming out showing that every animal that was involved in the safety test died. Still no long-term effect studies because it hasn't been used long enough. We are the test subjects. We are the guinea pigs. Those of us that have gotten a vaccine, we're the guinea pigs. So anyway, I digress. Then we were told add boosters into the mix. Oh yeah, the vaccine only lasts for so long. Oh, by the way, natural immunity doesn't apply because we don't know how good natural immunity is with regards to COVID-19, which is a straight fucking lie, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So anyway, so booster and then booster 2 and then booster 3 came out and they're all mandatory. People are losing their jobs. Military members were required to get the vaccine or they were kicked out. Every industry basically in the United States had some type of vaccine mandate. They were preventing people from getting a religious exemption, which is a direct conflict of the Constitution. Well, luckily, a couple of court cases went through, and that the religious exemption, the people preventing religious exemptions got overruled. Then they had to start allowing for religious exemptions or for weekly tests or whatever, right? So anyway, information started coming out that the vaccine's efficacy doesn't work. The vaccine safety during the safety trials that they did do, all the animals died. The efficacy of the vaccine was now disputed because now why are we having fucking boosters? Well, people are trying to relay that to the Delta variant and the Omicron variant, which isn't true because if you look at the timeline of events, the boosters came out before the outbreaks of those. And how can you come up with a new, it's like take Omicron as an example. The Omicron outbreak came and then like maybe 2 months later, if that, we had the booster for the Omicron, even though that was also the dangerousness and lethality of Omicron was hidden from us globally speaking. Omicron basically it's been come out that the Omicron variant is at the same level as the flu with regards to lethality. It wasn't Delta. It wasn't the original SARS-CoV-2. It's like the flu. You get sick, you have some sniffles and coughs for most of us, with the exception of the elderly and those with underlying medical conditions, which is the same group of people that are negatively affected by SARS-CoV-2 as well as Delta. So anyway, we were lied to about the vaccines. We're lied to about the mask efficacy. We're lied to about the lockdowns. We're lied to about the origins of COVID by our media, our government, our own agencies that are in place to help the population be protected against and get through some type of pandemic outbreak. The CDC, the FDA, the NIH, the NIAID have all lied about all for the vaccines, the masks, the lockdowns, and the origins of COVID. Well, now it's come out. Now it's indisputable. Now the mainstream media is coming out saying that, oh yeah, it's man-made. Oh yeah, there's strains of HIV embedded or spliced into SARS-CoV-2. Oh yeah, it's more than likely possible. It's it's a 90%, 95% probability it came from the lab. Whether it was a purposeful release or a accidental exposure, we don't know, and that's not really that. To me personally, at this moment in time, the bigger deal is we were lied to about every aspect of COVID, and yet still to this day, billions of people globally and millions of people in the United States still believe that masks work because they're still wearing them. They still believe the vaccines work because they're up to like booster 4 now that's soon to be coming out. There's also talk about an edible type vaccine that people can take. All the vaccine passport bullshit coming out. People still believe this, even though it's documented and proven our government, our governmental agencies, our media, in collusion with big tech, lied to us and prevented the actual truth from coming out. And we were told, people like me that actually researched this and looked into it and were trying to figure out what was going on with COVID, we're conspiracy theorists. We don't have the proper credentials to challenge the science. I'm not talking about Fauci, I'm talking about the science in general. How dare we speak out against this? You know, our government would never do anything nefarious. Our government wouldn't lie to us. Oh, big tech ain't censoring you. Oh, wait, big tech is censoring you because, you know, the presence of misinformation is maybe detrimental to people. Well, now it came out in one of the news articles, and I didn't have time to find it before I get the video done, was that there were certain components of the government that knew the truth about a lot of this, but they hid it from the American people because they were afraid of what would happen and the impact of the truth getting to you, us, the American people. And you people some of you people still believe that our government told the truth when it comes to COVID and masks and lockdowns, and are still telling the truth about vaccines. You people still believe this madness. And then now we have the current events going on in Ukraine. So, all right, Russia's bombing and invaded Ukraine. Not in doubt. Okay, are we good? And this is also in by no means a defense of Putin invading Ukraine or bombing Ukraine. It's not that. This is just facts as they have come out. So the warmongering left, the warmongering right, the warmongering press are all clamoring about, we've got to do something to Ukraine. We've got to send them weapons. We need to put a no-fly zone over Russia. By the way, what that means are NATO and or U.S. fighter pilots will be flying over Russia, shooting down any Russian jets, fighter jets, drones. By the way, that is a direct act of war. If NATO or Russian assets, meaning fighter jets or whatever, were to actively go after and shoot down Russian aircraft over Ukrainian airspace, that is an act of war. So anyway, we got people, we need to send them arms. We need to set a no-fly zone over Ukraine and enforce it and shoot down Russian aircraft. We need to send troops. We need to go in there and kick Putin's ass. So we have all that shit going on. And then we have, the ghost of Ukraine, the Ukrainian fighter pilot that shot down 6 Russian fighter jets in one day. We had the 13 soldiers, or what are they, border agents, whatever they call them in Ukraine, on Snake Island, that were warned by a Russian warship to surrender or you'll be bombed. And of course the response was, dear Russian warship, go fuck yourself or go to hell, depending upon the translation. And they were subsequently bombed and killed. That's a rallying cry. Well, that was false. They surrendered. Russian forces took them in as prisoners of war, got their information, and then sent them home. The Ukrainian Minister of Defense has openly admitted that, oh yeah, they didn't die. They surrendered. Oh, and by the way, the ghost of Ukraine that everybody was all about and going, oh, right, yay. No, the video clips that were being pushed around on social media were from video games. They came out with the name of the alleged name of the ghost after, before all this came out, and the name given is actually of a internet prankster person. The video footage is from video games. But our government and our media is pushing it. Everybody's changing their avatars on whatever social media platform you're on with Ukrainian flag. We stand behind Ukraine. Thoughts and prayers and all this stuff, right? Well, here comes the fun part. There's also protesters being arrested in Russia for protesting Putin against the war. Okay, cool, great, protest. They're being subsequently arrested. Well, the left and the media is, how bad this is and how bad Putin is for arresting these people. And, how dare he? They're just trying to be anti-war. Well, not just 2 weeks ago, the left and the media were all about arresting the protesters in Ottawa, Canada, who were protesting peacefully, which we all have a God-given right to do. They were arrested. We've seen the video clips of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, repeatedly kneeing people in the chest because trying to arrest them and cuff them, etc. And our leftists and our media was cheerleading Trudeau. Trudeau put in emergency acts and was seizing bank accounts, seizing assets without warrant, without due process. He's still going after those people. But yet here, our leftists and our media were thumbs up about it. So anyway, we're being lied to by forgot one. In Ukraine, the United States owns and operates biological labs under the DOD. They don't fall under, on paper anyway, they don't fall under the NIH, CDC, that kind of thing. They fall under the DOD. We have multiple labs. There's 11 of them at least that I've been able to validate. I think there's some more, but I can't speak to those. Well, during the initial assault from Putin, rewind, 4 or 5 months ago, Putin was talking about the last time. He talked about this more, but about 4 months ago, he spoke along with China about the labs being operated in Ukraine. Now, he claimed that they were biological, they were creating biological weapons. They were creating chemical weapons to be used against the Russian people. That was his claim. And China was backing his claim. Well, it was labeled as, Russian propaganda. It's not really happening. That's not really true. We were told that, it's just Russia being Russia. Well, fast forward to February 24th on the initial assault, the 11 of the biological labs that we own and operate in Ukraine were bombed by Russia. In addition to military and strategic targets that you think you would expect an invader to attack and bomb first, kind of like what we did in the two Iraq wars, etc. But these labs that we owned and operated, and by the way, the only people employed in those labs were U.S. citizens, by the way. So anyway, they were bombed, but you don't get not a peep out of the mainstream press, not a peep out of our government. We don't know. Keep in mind, it's only American citizens that were employed and working there. Here they were bombed. Did we have any casualties? Are there United States citizens that were killed in those bombings? Anybody know? Those questions that type of question and those types of questions are not being asked of this administration by anybody. Not Fox News, not Newsmax, not OAN, not the legacy CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC. Nobody's asking those questions, but yet they were bombed. So we're being lied to not only by showing outdated clips. The clip of Zelensky being in full battle rattle was from 2 years ago or a year ago. This wasn't current. The Snake Island thing was a lie. The Ghost of Kiev was a lie. Another one that's pushed around on social media was the young boy and the young girl with the flags waving at Ukrainian tanks. Yeah, that was from 2016. That wasn't new. So we're being fed more and more lies and more propaganda by our own press here in the United States about what's happening over in Ukraine. We're also being lied to by omission about the labs that we had in Ukraine and whether they were bombed or not, whether we had American casualties since it's only U.S. citizens that worked in those labs. But we're not being told that. That's a lie of omission. So we're being lied to about every aspect of what's going on in Ukraine. Keep it in mind, not only this, but go back just a couple of years with the Hunter Biden laptop about Burisma, about his dealings in Ukraine. Keep in mind that Pelosi's son, Kerry's son, Biden's son, all were C-level, chairman-type level executives at natural gas companies in Ukraine, ciphering off hundreds of millions of dollars from those companies. That's not coming out. That's not being readdressed. Here we were, the United States, and our dirty-ass politicians and their families were siphoning money away from Ukrainian, which it could have been used to help build their infrastructure. They have two of the largest natural gas deposits in Ukraine. One's on the east, one's on the west, and then they also have the large deposits out in the Gulf down by Crimea that we could have helped them exploit and got them, move them up the food chain, if you will, in the gas exportations in Europe. Because you keep in mind, 35 to 40% of the oil that the European countries use for petrol for their vehicles and to heat their homes with comes from Russia. But you and me are not being told this information from our mainstream, trustworthy, unbiased news. No, we have to find this information through other sources, and then when we do find it and we can show it, we're labeled as conspiracy theorists. So far, that's three big ones that I've shown you where you were outright lied to by our government, by the media, censored by big tech. And yet millions upon millions upon millions of people still believe that the government has our best interests in mind, that they would never lie to us, that the media is fair and unbalanced, that our governmental agencies like the CDC, NIH, NIADA, FDA would never lie to us. They have our safety in mind. Keep in mind, every recalled drug in the United States at one point was approved by the FDA. So I digress. The last one I want to hit on is the current inflation spike. It's the largest spike in 40 years in the United States. It happened under the Biden administration. This is not a result of Trump policies. This is not a result of Trump's economic policies. This has nothing to do with Trump. The spike in our interest is solely and duly appointable to Biden and his policies. Part of it was the tax credits that we got under this whole fucking COVID bullshit. The money that was being paid to people to, keep them afloat because of their business being locked down by the government, by the way. That has a lot to do with it. Shutting down domestic oil and natural gas production, which was the first day in office, he shut down the XL pipeline. At that moment in time, keeping in mind, the United States was a exporter of oil, and not just that, but we were as large, if I remember right, or maybe even larger than OPEC in the amount of crude oil that we were exporting globally. We became a world power, in addition, even more of a world power because of our natural gas and crude oil exports. First day in office, Biden shuts down the XL pipeline, which would have guaranteed and solidified us. Nope, shut it down. Keep in mind, there's also moratoriums that are going on in the Gulf that Biden has put in place for natural gas and oil exploitation from the Gulf of Mexico that Biden has also shut down. There's also not just that, but he hasn't renewed leases under his administration for current drilling going on in the Gulf of Mexico. He wants us to be green and solar and all this bullshit. Well, all that has added to inflation. And now you throw in the war that's going on. Sanctions against Russia are going to negatively impact us as well and make our inflation go even higher. The whole World Bank sanction bullshit that they put on is it's cutting off your nose to spite your face here in the United States. It's going to do very little against Russia because China is backing Russia. India has claimed neutrality, but India is also backing Russia when you look at it from an economic standpoint. The ruble, will it devalue? Sure, but the ruble is not a global currency like the United States dollar is. Very little people outside of Russia are investing in the ruble. No matter what our press and government is telling you, the World Bank sanctions not going to have that big of an impact because the ruble is not a global currency. And now when you have a state like, or a country like China and a country like India may not be directly supporting Russia's economic issues, but they are indirectly supporting it. Keep it in mind, Germany is still buying Russian oil. United States is still buying Russian oil. Multiple countries are still buying Russian oil. There wasn't a sanction against their exports. We haven't done it yet. We haven't cut off the oil pipeline from Russia. We, the United States, are still purchasing that oil. So what good are these fucking sanctions going to do? So every aspect of the Ukrainian war that we are being told by our government, by our media, by our big tech is a lie. The sanctions are not what you think they are. They're not going to impact Russia like we're being told they are. So anyway, the biggest things to hit our planet and hit our country in the last 4 decades, the spying on Trump, COVID-19, the Ukrainian war, and the inflation. Those are the 4 big ones. There's many, many, many more, but I'm hitting those 4. We are been documented and proven lied to by our government, by our media, by our big tech. Censoring is rampant in big tech. You can't go on. I guarantee you this video will get struck down on YouTube. I'll put dimes to dollars on it because I have mentioned what's going on with COVID-19. Now, being that the government is now repealing and state governments are repealing their whole mask mandate, because polling and midterms are coming, the polls, they've done shitty in the polls and people are sick of the mandates, and we have a midterm election coming on where they know there's going to be a red wave and they're going to lose the House and lose the Senate. Oh, guess what? Oh, yeah, by the way, Biden has a State of the Union address for tonight. So they're, Pelosi said no more masks because that would, the optics of that look bad. Well, we have a midterm coming up. It's amazing how coincidental the repeal, the vehemency of the mandates and the lockdowns, the masks, and all these states have pushed like Whitmer and Michigan and Illinois and California and New York and Vermont and Connecticut and all these other states and blue states have been pushing and ridiculing people and shutting down businesses. All of a sudden, polling data comes out, shows that, Americans are sick and fucking tired of it. And then add in what happened with Ottawa, where that got global exposure, where everybody in the planet is tired of it. Oh, yeah, it wasn't that the fucking science changed, it's that midterms are coming up. So I say all that because my concern is that people like me are labeled conspiracy theorists because we go in and look and research stuff and we're showing you alternative media reporting and facts that are coming out that our media is preventing from being exposed. I'm showing you where it's documented proof that they've lied to us. This isn't a conspiracy theory. The thing about Russia and Trump and collusion isn't a conspiracy theory for me that our media lied and our government lied and our governmental agencies lied, like the FBI and CIA lied. That's documented fucking proof. Durham is also, that's 2 he's come out with now. There's more coming. But everything that was labeled against Trump, everything that was laid at Trump's feet as far as him being a Putin's puppet has been proven false. It's been proven to be a lie. But yet still millions upon millions of American people still believe that our media is truthful and fair and unbalanced, and they wouldn't produce propaganda or push propaganda on our populace. Our millions of people still believe our government has our best interest at heart. There are some politicians and some governmental people that do. Not to take away from people like them. Rand Paul would be a prime example. But overall, our government has done nothing but lie to us, repeatedly lie to us, demonstrably lie or do things against us that are not right. COVID, Ukraine, the Trump collusion shit, and inflation are just 4 examples. Look into them. Figure out what's going on. I'm not even going to get into all the other stuff that they've done previous, the Tuskegee incident, injecting people with syphilis on purpose. So, God, there's so many more I don't want to get into. But our government does not have our best interests in mind. Our government as an entity, as a whole, does not have our best interests in mind. They have their own interests in mind. They have their own wanting to secure their power, wanting to get be reelected. That's what the fuck they're concerned of. They're not concerned with what's best for us. Now, admittedly, there's a lot of us who can't admit what's best for us. There's multiple discussions and disagreements about what is or is not best for us. Well, that's great. Let's have those conversations. Let's discuss those in an open forum where we are allowed to actually show another side to the issue. But when we're being told we can't do it, that's like being given a research paper or assignment by a college professor saying, hey, you need to do this research paper. Here's the 10 books that you need to read from in order to produce your paper. Well, by the way, you're not allowed to use these 2. And then when you turn in your paper, you're only allowed to use 8 of the 10. You get knocked down because, some of the information you needed was in those books, but you couldn't produce it because they were told not to read it. But yet millions upon millions of people still believe that our government and our media have our best interests in mind. The media only cares about ratings. The media only cares about getting, having the best contacts to get the stories out first. The media only cares about pushing the governmental narrative so they stay within the good graces of the United States. So if you look at a organization like Project Veritas, they're getting raided by the FBI. They're getting torn down by other media. They don't have a reporter in the White House doing, with these Psaki's updates and daily press conferences or whatever. That's what the media is trying to avoid. That's what ABC, CBS, and all the other ones, up to and including Fox and Newsmax, they don't want to get on the bad side of the government because they know they'll be removed from the inner circle and won't get the first headline, won't get the stories out first. That's what they care about. Government only cares about their securing of their power, securing of their own finances. Insider trading, anyone? Congress, the House, the Senate, even the judiciary is corrupt. If you think about it, why would anyone cheer and applaud the appointment of a justice, whether if somebody says this is a left-leaning judge and a left applause, or this is a right-leaning judge and a right applause, why would anybody applaud for any kind of political leanings of a fucking judge? Why? Lady Liberty's blind, right? Political affiliations, political ideologies should have no part, no parcel, no play in the nomination of a judicial nominee. But yet here we are. We got Biden appointing fucking radicals to the Supreme Court, trying to pack the Supreme Court, trying to add justices to the Supreme Court, and so that the left can gain back a majority of the Supreme Court justices. We applauded Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett when Trump appointed them because they were right-leaning justice. You know what I did? I shook my fucking head and couldn't believe that we were at a state where our legal appointees were being applauded because of their political biases and their political ideologies. That's fucking crazy. That's just crazy. But yet, our government has our best interests in mind. It's just fucking insane. I lose my shit every day when I see stuff coming across the news feeds and news media because it's all a bunch of bullshit. And yet when I try to tell people that I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm crazy, I'm the nut, the nut case, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have the proper credentials in order to argue the science. I don't have a degree at the appropriate or the authorized university in order to argue that policy is bullshit or that medical finding is a lie. They're not showing you the truth. Here they are. 4 demonstrable lies, the biggest things to hit in decades in the United States, and bunch of you still believe in our government and our media. And with that, I'll bid you adieu. I hope you have a great day. Good night.
This has been a dose of reality from CNS Dispatch. Citizens, not servants. We now return you to your involuntary mental programming.